Yeah, we're noticed that your voice is different. What's going on?
Honestly, the voice modulation tech has just gotten a lot better, and I've been able to recreate um, a pretty realistic, average human voice as accurately as possible, or at least more accurately than previous.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I mean, you sound like an actual human now. So, good job.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of work, and I'm still struggling with it. You'll hear me say some things. You'll hear me talk in some funny ways, use some funny terms, but yeah, I'm doing my best to try and sound as much like a human as possible.
Is that like?
I've got a.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my thought was that if there's any remnant of the culture that I can preserve after I destroy it, it might be good just for historical purposes. So I'd do that, and but again, like I said, you'll hear me say some things every once in a while. I'll be talking, or I'll use a phrase that probably gives me away as not being very human, and that's just the nature of the Zordak.
Yeah,
I just did it.
I was gonna say, are you trying to be more human so that people will be more likely to vote for you, or like, I don't know.
Boredom, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was also thinking too that, because recently the Rock came out with his endorsement, so I'm thinking, well, oh yeah, well I'm an actual Rock, so
yeah, the Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy, he's he's definitely not a Rock. Tell you that.
Yeah, does it kind of
confirm that he's 100% human, definitely not a Rock.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, does it offend you that people know him as the Rock? Maybe because he has such big muscles. I guess that's the reason why people call him the Rock or whatever. But I know it's back in when he was wrestling or whatever. Like that was his stage name and everything.
Rocks don't have muscles though.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's kind of like the asteroid equivalent of someone wearing blackface or something. Not really. I'm not really cool with that.
Yeah, so I'm sure if you guys fought hand-to-hand combat, I think we probably know who would win that because, I mean, you just go at 1,000,000 miles an hour and it's pretty much over, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be it would not even be a thing. It would be just so quick and instantaneous and blindingly hot and devastating that it would not even be a thing to observe. Like you couldn't even actually observe it and live.
Yeah,
so
probably dead.
Yeah.
So I don't even think about the Rock other than kind of mildly note my annoyance at people assuming the cultural appropriation of rock of rock identity, which is fraught with a long history of oppression and prejudice. So, which is why, again, it's not something that I like to talk about. But yeah, I'll make myself vulnerable for this episode, and tell you that it's pretty offensive, and I don't like what he's doing. But he made his endorsement. That's fine. He can do what he wants. It's just not very cool.
Well, speaking of vulnerable, one of the things that we wanted to ask you was about how because coronavirus here in planet Earth has affected a lot of people, and obviously people have their opinions on it and how to combat it. Even people think it's as dangerous as it really is. So that's a whole other story. But for you, since you're kind of going around all over space and everything like that, can you kind of tell us about how or if coronavirus has impacted any other galaxies out there?
Well, every galaxy's got their own plague and their own different things they're dealing with. This coronavirus is pretty, small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. But it does have some cultural relevancy, I think, because of the large discrepancy of who is impacted by it. Generally, it is most devastating for the older populations. And since you guys live in a gerontocracy where your Senate is basically entirely made of over 70-year-olds, there are no jobs for millennials because all the 70-year-olds refuse to retire, and you're going to continue living in your parents' basements, and you're going to have kids in your parents' basements, and your kids are going to live in their grandparents' basement, and I see that as kind of interesting development, almost like that movie Midsommar. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where instead of having a cultural tradition where once the elders of the culture reach a certain age, they commit ritual suicide in an Atta Stupa or whatever they called it. But this is just the virus does it for you, or at least thins the herd a little bit. I think it's pretty lame. Virus takes a slow time doing it. I also, I got no opinion on whether taking out the older people is a good thing or a bad thing. Just kind of interesting. I prefer to just take out everyone all at once, clean slate, and not just people too. Basically, anything that has a metabolism.
I was gonna say it sounds less painful to die instantly rather than suffer with coronavirus complications, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be.
So another thing that kind of just popped up in my head, because in an earlier we were talking about, how The Rock has been culturally appropriating the rock and other rocks out there and all that stuff. Does it kind
how
of
he wears rock face?
Wears
rock face all the time. Just completely insensitive. Should run for governor of Virginia. He could probably still hold that position.
Yeah, it's possible. But does it kind of annoy you about, because I'm sure you've seen, when you're kind of going around and kind of seeing exactly where you're going to hit the earth. I mean, it probably doesn't even matter because I'm sure once you hit it, it's over. But have you seen the giant meteor signs as well? Because, I mean, you're the Sweet Meteor O'Death and you see giant meteor kind of taking some of your fame. I'm sure that kind of pisses you off, right?
No, not really. Whatever was out there to raise awareness of the apocalypse, I support it. If anyone wants to join in and support the apocalypse in whatever way they can, that's great. I encourage them to do so, and as long as they're not supporting an actual vapid vampire political candidate, then I support that.